Today on the Topic Show, Vivek on touring Iowa and the mainstream media goes viral. Bud Light Backyard Tour tweet is mostly ratioed. Budweiser set the tone for 2024 tweet is mostly out of tune. DeSantis on House Republicans selling out. BMW M2 with stick shifts accounted for 50% of all M2 sales. Apple iPhone sales dropped 30% in the first week in China. And Boeing stock fell around 9% after the door blew off the plane mid-flight. All of that much more on The Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of January, so if you click that button, I'd greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have the BMW M2 having a sale rate of 50% for the stick shifts. Long live the three pedals, also known as the manual transmission, the only true way to drive a vehicle and actually enjoy the experience that driving surely should always be. Now this comes to us thanks to, interestingly enough, a website called Jalopnik, and crazy enough, this is actually an article that is not bashing Elon, which accounts for about 98% of their current content. I may be exaggerating a little bit, but not much. Now, specifically, this comes from Colin Woodward. They noted that the demand for manual transmissions on the BMW M3s and M4s were also strong, but the rates were just not as high as the M2. Now, I'm actually especially fascinated by this because if you look at the strategy of BMW, which, fun business fact, has the longest standing mantra or advertisement in automotive history, it's BMW, the ultimate driving machine, which, again, you could debate, is it really an ultimate driving machine if it's a computer on wheels and it's an EV? But anecdotally speaking, when I performed the Dallas Half Marathon, it's sponsored by BMW every December, and it's one of those instances where usually they bring out all their vehicles and gives you a little insight of what they want to advertise to the public, where they think the future is going to be. And last year, they didn't have a single stick shift. They didn't have any of the top line performance vehicles. They're all EVs and hybrids and mostly stuff that puts me to sleep personally. But that's a huge indicator because in the past couple, wind back the clock a couple years ago, other times I've done the race at the expo where you pick up your you have the packet pickup, which is where you have your race bib and all the swag. They'd have all the cool BMWs you got to sit in and look at. And they used to have the M3, the M4, and they had the top of the line with the actual stick shift. And it was awesome. It was a great display, shows the pinnacle of their engineering. But yeah, last year in 2023 at the Expo, they had nothing but EVs, hybrids, and just personally I just yawned and stayed there for about the minimum amount of time to pick up my packet and get out, so I could subsequently drive home in my vehicle, which has manual transmission, and smile nearly all the way there. Now, again, going back to the article, they note that, excuse me, a little bit more than half of all BMW M2 buyers in the U.S. chose going with the three-pedal option. That's according to Motor One reports. Now, in terms of the breakdown of the other vehicle models by BMW, which, again, great Bavarian engineering, brilliant. I mean, the Quant family is widely successful, the family behind the brand. It's one of those instances where I really, from an enthusiast perspective, I don't know, perhaps I'm just an old soul, I appreciate names for vehicles like Camaro, Corvette, Mustang. These, especially if you're not into BMW, to most people, they're not going to know, well, there's an M2, there's an M3, and an M4. It's like, I don't know if they're paying someone by the hour in the marketing department for the naming department, but I understand the argument that that whole nomenclature builds loyalty to the brand. And I suppose you can say I'm a little hypocritical since I'm one of the many people who believe the best car in history ever made with the pinnacle of engineering would probably have to be the McLaren F1, which, yeah, that is also just nothing more than letters and numbers, but nevertheless. In terms of the actual data for the M2, trying to see the actual specific data point. It comes with the manual 6-speed transmission. Let's see here. And I apologize. Let's see here. Or the car. They know that 20% M3, M4 bars over the car in a manual. Still not even close to the M2. Let's see. And then, even more disappointing from BMW, a lot of people, if you look at the trends in the automotive community, past, especially the United States, where people, crazily enough, they don't mind having a $700, $800, $900, or $1,000 payment for a vehicle. The number of entry-level vehicles being produced in the United States is decreasing. Every brand from Chevrolet to the more premium brands, they're starting to make more of the high-level trim levels. There is, of course, more profit in them as well, incentivizing both manufacturers to do that as kind of lean into that trend. Now, it looks like BMW only offers manual transmissions on the most basic M3 and M4, which is, I suppose I can appreciate from an enthusiast perspective if you just want the basics. I mean, a true enthusiast wouldn't even want a radio because you want to hear the listen to the engine. You're not going to play the radio when you're on the track. But in terms of daily driver, which, let's be honest, a lot of people are purchasing these vehicles as daily drivers. It's one of those instances where they're only offering the manual on the M3 and M4 if it's the base model, which, again, that's going to limit your target audience even more. Now, they also note that anyone who buys a competition, oh, geez Louise. Again, who's in your naming department at BMW? Nevertheless, okay, so they say anyone who buys a competition CS or CSL, whatever those might stand for, don't even have the option of picking a stick. The manual also isn't offered on the all-wheel drive versions of the M3 and M4. They say, considering how popular it's been on the cars that they offer during transmissions, maybe BMW should consider changing that. Yeah, I would say probably. Let's see here. Now, they also note that they think their sale, if you talk to you look at all the executives at BMW, especially the past couple of years, a lot of them are noting the industry trend, more and more people going to buy automatic, and they're worried about the supply chain. They're crying, they might not know where to buy their clutches, which, again, if the demand is there, you just make them yourself. You just take out the investment, you build a factory, you start to manufacture your own clutch pedals or wheels, vernacular aside. So it'll be interesting. A nice little refresh in terms of seeing some enthusiasts actually step up. And there are so many forums and groups on the Facebook and all these websites saying save me on transmissions. It's really not that complicated. It just takes a lot of money, political influence, and cultural change. You realistically, if you want to actually save me on transmission, first and foremost, go out and buy a new vehicle in a stick shift, which, not that it's an expensive vehicle, but I'm proud to say I've done, so I'm doing my part. Now, that will signal directly to the manufacturer that, hey, these vehicles are being sold, and that's what they care most about, is are these vehicles moving? So you need to actually get people to go to the dealership and buy one. Second fold, I would say you need a cultural shift. You got to get people excited about actually the experience of driving, which I would argue you should savor every second of it because it is an extraordinarily fun thing to do. And thirdly, you need to write to your politicians because one of the biggest drivers, pun moderately intended, behind why so many of these vehicles are acquiescing to automatic transmissions and EVs is the government is bullying the automotive community. I mean, we saw this with the Volkswagen GTI. I believe it was Q4 last year, fiscal Q4, most companies' calendar year. But we saw it last year. The company specifically stated they won't have the manual transmission for one of the most iconic vehicles, the Jetta. So many of those vehicles should all have manual transmissions. Some are losing that specifically because they get less fuel economy and they have a higher tailpipe emissions than an automatic transmission. And so there are threefold. I think it's not too complicated to do, change this whole cultural thing and allow more options for manual transmissions to be sold in the U.S. But that's what you really need to do. And some companies are keeping it alive. I think Porsche's doing the best personally, given their take rate of the number that are made with manual transmission. If you want a supercar in terms of, if you want a car that's really a pinnacle of engineering and really, a fast car you take to the track, unfortunately, that higher echelon, there really is one choice, which is brilliant because Porsche now is basically a monopoly. I mean, if you go to Ferrari, it's automatic only, which, geez Louise, which, again, terrible business decision since they're used stick shift vehicles for Ferraris when compared to the e-gear or electronic gear. It's usually 2 to 3x. People are willing to spend double or triple the amount of money for manual transmission experience. Go look at Lamborghini, that's automatic for years as well. Look at Maserati, that's been automatic for years as well. Corvette, the Camaro's dead. The list goes on in terms of vehicles that have died. But there is a little nice semblance, a little good news in the automotive community, which is a rare thing, which is why I thought it would be worth bringing it up today. So let me know in the comments, Have you ever purchased a new vehicle with 3 pedals, as every car should be by default? And if not, what's stopping you? Is it in some cases where you do have these absorbent dealer markups, or there are some vehicles, there's some Honda dealerships that want to charge $70,000 for Honda Civic Type R, which is so ridiculous. I can't help but laugh at that. Although it's almost sad, you actually hear when people buy it, I can't help but wonder where on earth do they work, where they're paying basically double what this vehicle should be selling for the MSRP. And of course, when you buy an MSRP, no one actually paid that. That's actually, if you bought a car at MSRP, it used to be considered a sucker because there's so much profit built into that number already. So long story short, let me know about your experience and your thoughts about actually going out and getting a manual transmission. What's stopping you? And if you could get any vehicle with a stick shift, what would it be? As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in again today. Trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of January. So if you click that button, I really appreciate it. Also, giving a thumbs up and leaving a comment is a great way to give me some additional feedback. I do apologize if it takes me a little while to get the comments, but I always try to get to them, and I appreciate the additional feedback. Also, and lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.